recording now as well. So over to Janis to talk about automation for marketing. Where can I find clients? What to do once you find them? Thanks.
Okay. Sure. Thanks, Fiona. So my name's Janis. I introduced myself briefly, but I know that some of us are new. I used to be a family lawyer. I've been doing marketing now for about 7 or 8 years, and I just consult in estate planning. I'm about to become a school mum in 3 days, God help me. And I'm here today to talk about just the practicalities of marketing for professional services. Now, I do specialise in marketing for lawyers, but obviously there's a lot of crossover for marketing generally and also for marketing between family mediators and family lawyers, so you'll have to excuse the slides. Most lawyers, though, are in the same situation as most mediators, which is you're doing your own marketing, you don't have budget for that. And so what I want to talk about today is ways that you can set up your own marketing. Those of you who are on the mailing list, which should be everyone who's got this link anyway, should have gotten an email from me with my sales funnel information. And if you haven't gotten that, maybe go and check your junk mail box. What I hear from a lot of professionals is, I don't need to do marketing or advertising because I get business through word of mouth. That's fine, and I think that's right. But what I want you to understand is that word of mouth doesn't mean that you stop marketing. Word of mouth means you market to your previous users. So it's not an excuse not to do anything and to just sit around waiting for people to talk about you. It means that what you need to do is more networking than it is traditional forms of advertising. If you take away 2 things today, then these are the 2 things that I want you to take away. The first one is, if you are doing your own marketing, pick one thing and do that well. Do not try to do all of the things. Now, I don't mean that you're only ever allowed to share things in an email list, or that you're only ever allowed to share things in a Facebook post. What I mean by that is all of these channels are different. You create content and share content in a different way. So if you want to take the content that you've created for one channel and share it on everything, that's fine. But the big take-home point that I want you to have for today, one of the 2, is pick which one you're going to do and focus on doing that really well. And if you get really good at that so that you can set and forget, great. Move on to another one. I'm pretty confident that for most of you that won't happen, because it's actually incredibly time consuming, and that you will continue to refine the one channel that you're doing well. The other thing that I want you to take away from today is that it's all about the data. So every business is different. That's why I gave you that sales funnel checklist, because I'm not going to attempt to tell you this is the channel you should use, this is what will work for you, because it's nonsense. Businesses are run by people. Even if you're a one-person shop, you're a person, so you're going to be fundamentally different to everybody else. You run your business for people, so your clients, whether they're lawyers or self-represented people, they're still people, and so they're different. And anyone who says that they have the answer to marketing for you is having you on. A lot of marketing is starting to do something, seeing if it works, having a look at the back end of the data, and then refining your approach to match more closely what's working. Sometimes that involves big change, so this isn't working at all and I need to completely try a new channel, and that's fine. But there's no point doing a whole bunch of great marketing if you're not actually looking at the data behind it. It might look pretty, your friends might say it's great, but is it converting? Are your friends using your services, or does it just look nice? And it's the reason for that classic thing that you hear about followers and likes aren't dollars. The number of followers isn't actually a very good metric for whether or not your data is working. You need to be looking at the data, you need to be figuring out what's converting, and then you need to be revisiting your marketing efforts to fit in with that. So have one channel that you do really well, but even though you've only got the one channel, have a look at it. So if it's Facebook, It's really easy to go into the insights and look at your posts and see what's working. If it's email marketing, even easier to go in and see the data in the background. What's everyone clicking on? Oh, that resonated. I'll do some more of that next time. So it's all about the data. It's all about understanding what your people like. I'll talk a bit about the different channels. Different channels are going to work for different groups of people, which is again why in that sales funnel, I get you, which you got in the email, I get you to go through your ideal client and where they found you. If you're a brand new business, don't panic. Talk to 3 friends who you think meet the qualification of your ideal client. And then again, start doing something. One channel, start doing it and have a look at the data. 3 months from now, you will have clients who you can call and ask them all those ideal client questions that I've set up for you. And then you can use that to refine your approach. Word of mouth. It's important that you understand, not just globally that I want 1,000 different people talking about me, because it's not going to happen. But you need to be far more focused than that. So who are they? What channel did they find you on? And what can you share that's of interest to them? So if you want work through word of mouth, you need to be thinking about things that you can share that keep you top of mind, that keep them thinking about you, so that when something comes up in conversation, they can say, oh, my mediator shared an interesting article on conflict in families, and then they're doing your marketing for you. But you need to be targeted. Word of mouth is not an excuse not to be targeted. This is an email list. Plumbers have leaky taps and marketers don't do their own marketing. So in my firm where I consult, even though I am mad keen on email marketing, mostly because of the data you can get from behind it, I haven't been doing a very good job of email marketing in the firm where I consult. So I do estate planning, which is wills, and I just haven't been doing any of it. And so in December, I set about revisiting the email list because I knew that we had this event coming up. And people, when I try and talk to them about email marketing, often say to me, oh, but I don't have very many people, or oh, it's all just going to junk mail. And so I've quite intentionally shared these 2 screen grabs with you, where you can see that the emails are only 16 days apart. I sent 2 emails in between them, so that's 4 emails in 16 days, but not to the entire list. And I will share with the email list afterwards the process that I went through. But you can see there's a dramatic increase in the percentage open rate, and that's just over 16 days, and that's with a very small list. So you don't need a big list, and it's not wildly complex what you need to do to get emails into people's inboxes that they're actually opening. It's about writing good quality content and just knowing how to share it. And again, I'll share my how-to for those of you who are subscribers who are used to seeing the how-to instructions for family property. It'll look real similar when you go over to my website and see the how-to instructions for email marketing. So I will share that with you, but I just wanted to encourage you that the number of followers is not what's important. It's whether or not they're engaging, and that applies for all platforms. The other channels that you can think about for marketing, connections are really key for mediators, particularly if you want to be getting referred work by family lawyers. But you need to have a good think about how you're following up on those connections. And in a second, I'll talk about a survey that I've done. I haven't had a lot of family lawyers respond to the survey yet, but I'm going to continue trying to get them to respond and share the data with you later. However, the responses are basically, in gross summary, that the most effective way to get a family lawyer referring mediations to you is to have them use you, so they've used you in the past so they trust you. You might think that sounds impossible. Sure, getting the first client through the door is difficult, but that's true of all forms of marketing and advertising. Something like 9 times more expensive to get a new client or user than it is to simply resell to an existing client or user. So that's not a thing that's unique to marketers, to mediators, but particularly in your industry, if you want to be getting work from family lawyers, then think about focusing your marketing efforts on creating connections with and a community with local family lawyers. Facebook, everyone is a big fan of Facebook, but I think everyone's still living where they were 3 to 5 years ago, where you could get natural organic reach for free. Since they privatized, that's really not happening anymore. We had a panel discussion in last week's event that I'm happy to circulate to this group as well, where we had one person, me, talk about SEO content, one person talk about Instagram, and one person talk about Facebook. And the person who's talking about Facebook is actually also a professional marketer. And it's her position that Facebook is great as long as you're willing to spend money on an ad budget. And I'm happy to share that video with everyone later. Instagram, you can still get organic reach on Instagram, though that can be difficult for mediators and lawyers because obviously it's graphically driven. So yes, you can get great reach, but you need to be either willing to take a lot of selfies or fairly handy with Canva in order to use that platform. But you can still get the organic reach there. I think that organic reach on Facebook is pretty dead. SEO and content, again, this depends on what it is that you want to focus on and perhaps your background before you came to being a mediator. If you're a lawyer mediator, then give this serious thought because lawyers are great at creating content. If it's not your thing, that's fine, but it can be quite powerful and easy to share across all of the platforms. So you create a blog post to make Google happy, then you share it across all of the platforms fairly easily. Twitter, I think, is very difficult for professional services to do well. It's just, there are some who do it well, but on the whole, I think that's very difficult. YouTube can be excellent as long as you're willing to invest in a proper setup, much more than what I've invested for that you're looking at today. You need higher quality video than that. Sure, most iPhones have great video, but you're going to need tripods, lights, proper background, that sort of thing. So YouTube, you can get the organic reach, but you're going to have to invest in the setup. LinkedIn is traditionally best for selling business to business. So if you're really wanting to bring in those family lawyers, LinkedIn could be a really great option for you. The general figures that I hear, even from people who sell LinkedIn marketing courses, is that if you're doing 2 posts a week on LinkedIn and 1 article a month on LinkedIn, then you're doing pretty well on that platform. So LinkedIn can be a good platform to think about because it can be great to meet other family lawyers in your area, even though it's not as popular as some of the other platforms. Google is important, but I suspect in the case of mediators that Google is sort of your second line of defense. So you get recommended by word of mouth and then someone looks you up. So it's really sort of your second step. New platforms, I really struggle to see how a very traditional profession like law or mediation can thrive on those platforms. And I particularly have concerns with the new platforms where, for instance, with Clubhouse, there's no recording. With TikTok, how in 15 minutes do you give anything meaningful, but then also cover the fact that it's not meant to be advice? I think there are inherent risks with those platforms, which are mostly aimed at younger people with shorter attention spans. We need the longer attention spans in order to cover all of the things that Joanne just covered in the earlier event. All right, I'm going to stop that just for a second because I can see there's lots of questions coming up in the chat. SEO, okay, hang on, recording is paused. Okay, what is SEO? I was going to get to that later, but I'll cover it now. SEO is search engine optimization. Now, when I say search engine, what do you all think of? Probably Google, first word that comes to mind. Best way to think about SEO is to think of it as Google optimization. So what optimizes Google? What does Google want? Well, Google wants money, like everyone else in the world. what makes Google money? What makes Google money is if the platform is working. You're going to stop using Google if you go and to look for a cafe near you and you get old information, untrustworthy information, irrelevant information. You're going to stop using the platform, which means Google stops making money. So the thing to really zero in on, and people with a legal or professional background should be very good at this. The thing to really zero in on is giving Google what it wants, which is authoritative, trustworthy, relevant content. And this is where your blog becomes really important, because blogs are dated. And so that's flagging to Google really quickly that I'm still using this website. Here's my blog post that goes up every week. So that is one flag that your information is timely. You don't want to Google for a cafe and find a cafe that closed last year. You'll stop using the platform. It's the same with professional services. So the way to think about SEO is to think of it as Google optimization. How can I contribute in a way that means that people trust the Google platform? And Google will like, for instance, if people go to my website and don't just flick away 5 seconds later, because that communicates to Google, and yes, Google is watching, that your website is boring or irrelevant or people didn't like it. Whereas if people go and actually stay and read, then that's flagging to Google that, oh yes, this is authoritative, trustworthy content. So you want to be doing what Google wants, which is having people like and read and go to your content. That's how SEO works. Also, anyone who tells you that they know the Google algorithm, distrust them immediately. It's nonsense. If the Google algorithm was public, then you would Google local cafe and get an ad for Ray-Ban sunglasses. So anyone who tells you that they know the algorithm, they're lying. It's actually one of the best kept corporate secrets in the world. Separate website for mediation. Yes, I would, because, sorry, the question was, would you recommend a separate website for mediation services and legal services if you're doing both? I would. It doesn't have to be like a whole separate website insofar as that it needs a completely different URL, but you should definitely have a landing page. And you can set a landing page up very much like a homepage with links out and with its own separate menu. All of the web platforms that I've seen allow you to do that. But you would have a place where, when I'm marketing my mediation services, I'm using this landing page. And in most platforms, but not all of them, allow you to have more than one blog collection. So here's my landing page and my blog collection for my mediation services. Here's my landing page and my blog collection for my lawyer services. Or I know that some of you are doing other areas of work, like assessments for other areas of family conflict. So you would have separate landing pages, which shouldn't be a difficult thing for whoever's setting up your website to set up for you. I think that's all the questions in the chat at the moment, so I'm just going to jump back over to the slides. Okay, so I've already talked a bit about...
Sorry, there is one question there around concerns with the current Google landscape and proposed laws. Is there a way to do SEO with a provider other than Google?
Current proposed laws. The problem is you can do your content in a way that you think suits Bing, but 90% of your clients, your users, lawyers, whatever, are getting onto Google to find you. You can't choose how people look for you. I don't think in Australia, I don't think we're going to have the problems that Google wants us to think we're going to have. Google wants us to think we're going to have big problems so that we put pressure on our government not to cause Google the problems. It's nonsense. Google's too big for the Australian government to do anything about. I realise it's a controversial statement. I'm happy to maybe expand on that further in an email later. I just am conscious that I still have a lot of slides to get through.
Thanks.
Now I'm going to talk, and I'm conscious I've only got like 3 minutes, talk briefly, you will get this stuff in the email, about some free automation the Janis consults they're not even questions, they're just topics for marketing. For my law firm page, which you can go and look at that too if you want, it's Novus Law Group, I have hacked it again so that it prompts them to ask 3 things. One of them's conveyancing, one of them's wills and estates planning, and one of them's corporate law. So those are the 3 areas of law that I want to be getting clients in. So I've hacked the frequently asked questions in Facebook on the business page so that I'm sending information that I want to give them. Facebook likes that because I'm keeping them on the platform. I'm not taking them off to my website. But you get to write the questions. So you're not just stuck with what are my contact hours, no one cares, or they can Google it. You get to write the questions, you get to dictate the dialogue. MailerLite, this is a sign-up form for emails that are created using a free MailerLite account. We don't have a free MailerLite account at Family Property because the mailing list is too large, but I intentionally have a free account for Janis Consult so I can fiddle with it and make sure that the things that I'm recommending to everyone are available on the free account. And as far as I can tell, you have unlimited email sign-up forms. That can be really good because you also can set up automation off of the back of it. So you can have, for instance, a post on your Facebook page that says, if you put your email in here, I'll send you an email with this free download. Or if you put your email in here, I will send you an email explaining the fee structure. I'm a big believer in, if you're not even willing to give me your email address, you're probably a tire kicker. I'm not interested on racing to the bottom for price. So I'm just not interested in engaging with you quite quickly. If you're willing to give me your email, then I'll send you an email with price. And of course, that automated email that I've set up, again, this is all in the free MailerLite account, doesn't just say price, though it does that, but it then also says why they should use me. So it gives me a much bigger opportunity to speak to them than simply answering a question on the Facebook chat, what is your price? $900. And then that's probably the end of the conversation. This is a free landing page that I've set up using a free MailerLite account. As you can see, it's pretty decent looking. I mean, I'm not saying it's the best page in the world, but it's pretty decent looking. I know that I do this for a living, but that page that you're looking at took me about 20 minutes to set up. And then at the Novus business page, if you ask about wills and estates, this is the landing page that you get sent back, because even though we have a proper website at Novus Law Group, my page about wills and estates is really for people who've Googled us and who are just looking through the website. Whereas this is the landing page where I specifically wanted to target.
Oh, you're not sharing a page, Janis.
Oh, sorry. Hang on.
Sorry to interrupt, I'm just keen to see it.
No, please do if I do something like that. So this is a page that is specifically aimed at people who've come onto Facebook to ask how much are your wills. So as you can see, I'm trying to redirect them towards give me a phone call or something like that, rather than enter into this conversation about who has the cheapest wills. So that's where landing pages can be really good, where you just want to deal with that one very specific thing. HubSpot booking pages, again, on the free HubSpot account, you can connect this to your Google Calendar or your Microsoft Calendar. And if someone is looking at your website at 11 o'clock at night, they can book in an appointment with you, whether you're doing Zoom appointments or whether you're trying to do those discovery phone calls. This is a way they're interested, get them booked in, get them feeling a bit emotionally committed to talking to you, rather than just looking at your website at 11 o'clock at night and thinking, I'll call them in the morning, but then life gets busy. The other thing that I think people don't think about is if you have a website, I am yet to see a web platform where you don't have free inbuilt forms in the website, and you can really think about using that, whatever it is that you're trying to get people to do. Are you trying to get them to give you their information? Are you trying to get them to book an appointment? Do you want to sign them up for a discovery call? Do you want them to join your email list? Whatever the goal is, you can use those inbuilt forms and they'll sit nicely in your website because they're made by your website developer. So go and have a look at the forms. You can also use it for a bit of front automation. So just getting basic details from people. And the last thing, and you'll get this in the email that I will send, is I've got a blog post where I've figured out, because remember what I said at the beginning that I wanted you to think about data, data, data. So I've got a blog post where I've figured out how you can make Facebook, how you can keep a record of when people like your Facebook page, because there's no point getting followers if it's not converting into work. So don't just have a Facebook page and have followers. If you want to do that, you need to be recording them. And so, yeah, that's if you're going to focus on Facebook business pages, that's a way that I've figured out to use what's called Zapier on a free account to take the information from the Facebook notifications and put it into a Google Sheet for you so that you can see, right, here's all these people, but have any of them brought me any work? I'm conscious that I'm out of time and I have answered questions that have gone along, but does anyone have any other questions? No? Okay. Well, I don't want to...
As a marketer, what would be the top 3 takeaways as we get started on the top 3 things that you would recommend people do from a marketing perspective?
The first thing, and if you've looked at my sales funnel, this won't surprise you. The first thing is you need to get clear about your ideal client. I see a lot of marketing for mediation practices that is incredibly anti-lawyer. That's fine as long as you never want a lawyer to use you. But it's a really good example of why you need to be clear on your ideal client. If your ideal client are self-represented parties who are sick of lawyers, that marketing approach is fine. But if you want some lawyers to come to you, you can't do that. You can't put up posts saying how very expensive lawyers make the process, because we're sick of hearing it. We're not the ones who are causing the problems. So you need to get clear on your ideal client, partly to make sure you're not alienating someone, but also partly because there's a lot of information out there. I mean, Google how many ads you see in a day. It's scary. If it's not targeted and for them, they're scrolling past, they're flicking off, they're not opening the email. So get clear on who your ideal client is. That doesn't mean you won't take work from other people, and it doesn't mean that someone who falls outside ideal client won't look at it and think that's interesting, but you can't just put scattergun information out there. You won't capture anyone. You won't get engagement. So go through the sales funnel, get your ideal client right. Second thing is pick one channel, do it well. Do not do all the channels. Professionals don't do all the channels. You look at like marketing consultancies, everyone has their niche, you know, and there's a team. If you've got a big client who wants to do all the channels, you bring a team together to do all the channels. No one's doing all the channels. They might be creating content and sharing it, but what I mean is pick one, get good at what works on that channel. So for instance, at the moment, if you want any organic reach on Facebook, it's got to be with video. So figure out what works on that channel, do that. And the third thing is data, data, data. Collect data. Likes are not the point. People who convert into using your service are the point. You will never know that unless you are collecting data in the back end of your marketing. Okay, so whatever that one channel is that you have chosen, have a look at the back end, preferably once a week, to be getting familiar with what's working, so that as you're building out more marketing going forward, you're doing what works, not just what looks good or what should work in a textbook. You need what works for your people. So ideal client, one channel, data.
Excellent. We love the 3 takeaways to implement. As we have for all the other speakers, there will be a link to provide feedback on Janis's talk, and she loved that. We're going to move on to Chanel now. Chanel joins